Hi, welcome everyone to today's webinar on the bridging the gap and improving the alignment between sales and customer success. I'm Renat, one of the founders of Revos AI, and I have an absolutely amazing guest today with us. And thank you very much, Steven, for finding time speaking to us. It's actually Steven. So Steven, 25 years of experience in IT and amazing source of information, amazing source of insights. But I will just let Steven introduce himself.
Hi, Renat. Thank you very much for the invitation and the quick intro. So I'm Steve Cronin. I'm a customer value executive, so to say. So I've spent the last 27 or so years, so many years now, in the tech industry. So I started as a support engineer, then I moved into customer success, into support management, and lastly at ABBYY, which is an intelligent document processing company, I managed the post-sales teams, so customer success, education, customer support, the renewals team, and so forth. So a lot of experience in that field. And of course, subscription plays a big role. So yeah, thank you for that.
Amazing, Steven. Really excited to have you here. And my first question would be, given your experience and also given how much you have seen already, what is, in your opinion, the main challenges and difference between selling software as a service like subscription business and the perpetual traditional kind of licensing?
Yeah, so the non-subscription world, which obviously we all came from, or I came from, was much easier. You could sell software for a very high price up front, and then you would have a maintenance program, but you wouldn't have to deliver so much value to the customer because you got all the money up front. So in the subscription world that we are in now, it's completely different, right? Customers don't pay this high price at the beginning. They pay monthly or yearly, like a Netflix subscription. And so this means you need to offer value throughout the entire customer lifecycle. And I think this is the big challenge for established companies that are used to selling software and then moving to subscription, and then realize, oh, okay, suddenly now we have to do more. We have to now listen to our customers. We need to fix their bugs. We need to make sure that we deliver value to them throughout. So I think this is the reason we have customer success. So customer success was born out of subscription. I think Salesforce was one of the first companies that really went into this. And customer success is really there to make sure that the customer adopts the product, gets the value, and then keeps in touch with the customer, make sure that the value is still there, and also make sure that the customer knows how to get help and how to get value from the product throughout. But and this is then the next step in the evolution is, the realization that it's not only customer success who's responsible to deliver value to the customer. It's actually the entire organization, right? And you can't just farm it out to customer success as a team, right? And now this realization is hitting us, especially in the last 2 years, that customer success needs to reach out to everyone, combine everyone into this value proposition to the customer to be successful.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And do you think like that this realization is evenly distributed across the industry, or some industries are more into that than others?
Well, I think it's obviously the SaaS B2B software industry are now coming to that realization. There are some companies that do it very well, and there are other companies, usually the larger ones, where you have these silos. Sales doesn't talk to customer success, and customer success pointing their fingers at the product, and this is where you have these problems. But I do believe now, there's a lot of realization now that revenue and growth can only happen if everyone works together.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a very definitely we're coming to this topic of this webinar about this silo, and also what are the reasons and what are the solutions for that. But before we come into solutions, what do you think, like this like inherent tension between customer success and sales, where it's actually coming from, and why it wasn't there maybe before?
I think it's always been there. And I think that it comes from just having different goals. So the sales team are usually driven by short-term revenue targets. They have to achieve a year, and this is checked on a quarterly basis. And they will pretty much do anything to, achieve these goals, right? And then customer success gets those customers that the sales team acquires, and they see, oh, okay, the promises were made that can't be fulfilled from a product point of view, or promises were made in terms of, services, free PS or whatever, and it just becomes very difficult to deliver value to some customers. And customer success then thinks, sales doesn't care about what it is that they sell and who they sell to, and you have this clinch, and this is what has to be fixed. So that particular silo between customer success and sales has to be torn down, and they have to work together as a team in order to be successful.
Mm-hmm. And from your experience, you have seen a lot of companies and also work in such a big companies like ABBYY, for example. What do you say, like, what are the main problems or like the challenges when this tension is not very well addressed or very well fixed?
Well, if the problem isn't addressed, the things that I mentioned before happen. Yeah, you have customers who are not ideal fits, and they then don't renew because they're not successful, or you have customers who are not renewable because it's sort of a one-time project. There was once an example of a company doing a census in Australia, I believe, and sales sold them a package, but it's actually not a subscription deal because we knew that this has a start and an end date, within a year. So it's all these things that you have to look at, and if the company's goal is, we want to build a huge subscription base of customers and we want to retain them and grow them, then sales has to also sell in that direction.
That's very interesting. Do you think that there are potentially what are the best strategies to resolve on this? Like what have you seen? What's working very well in this area?
Well, the best strategy is always to communicate with each other. Yeah, you want to make sure that there is a trust there, between customer success, sales, and the product team. I think this is the most important triage. Trio of teams that need to talk to each other, they need to trust each other, and they need to work towards the common goal. And the common goal is retention and growth. Yeah, you want to make sure that you have a huge existing customer base that is bringing the majority of your revenue in, and it's also easier to grow an existing customer base. So in difficult economic times, like we've had in the last year or so, you can fall back on that existing customer base. Even if your new sales aren't that high, you will get through those difficult times, right? So to answer your question about how do you remove it, it's communication. So the chief customer officer needs to be very close to the chief revenue officer or chief sales officer, and of course, chief product officer. They need to work out together, what is it that we have to do in order to get these best fit customers, and look at each big deal to make a decision. Is this going to make us successful or not? And do we have everything in the back end to make them successful? I'm talking about added services. Do we need to attach professional services, or do we need to attach a premium support or customer success plan to make this customer successful? And then also, once the customer is a customer and you have adopted them, and if there is a problem, that everyone helps, in order to retain that customer.
That's very, very interesting point. But I think many people who have been in such discussions, they know how complicated is it to actually bring your point over, right? Because it's very hard, or I mean, easy from a speaker perspective, but hard for a listener perspective to speak about feelings or doubts or fears. But how could we make this discussion more tangible, more objective? Do you think like maybe some numbers, some statistics could potentially help, or some transparency?
Yes, I mean, obviously data is absolutely critical, yeah, especially with subscription and software. We have the potential to gather a lot of data about how the customers are using the product, maybe even sentiment analysis. When you speak to the customer, is the customer actually happy when they're talking to us? Are they not so happy? All these data points play a massive role, and they can all accumulate into coming to a decision. How is this customer actually getting the value from the product, and is this customer going to renew? What's the likelihood of renewal? Because ultimately that is the most important metric for a SaaS company. What's the likelihood of renewal? Is there risk of churn to this customer, and what is it that we do to maintain the customer? And then the next step is, how do we grow this customer? So when you can get a lot of data points, I'm a big proponent of having telemetry in products as well, where you can see what the customer is actually doing, or what the user is doing within the product. And this shows you if the usage, for instance, is going down. If customers use the product less, then that is a major alarm that there could be a cancellation coming up.
Yeah, no, that's very insightful. Actually, it also reflects very well our experience so far with Ravos. We being like a data analytics company for revenue teams, where we see a lot of demand, and actually we have a very successful spreadsheet template, which, by the way, all the participants of the webinar will get distributed after this webinar. And also, if you are watching the recording of this webinar, you can just find it on our website, where we put a lot of kind of thoughts, and also based on a lot of insights and interviews with people like Steven, for example, on the customer health score being very central role of like a guidance for the whole team. And on this note, in your experience, Steven, can you maybe name top like 3 interesting KPIs for your customer health scores which you did so far? What was the most influential and most interesting in your opinion, if you remember?
Well, I think when it comes to health scores, so to say, right? I mean, to determine how well is customer doing. So obviously the whole support metrics about customer effort score, and then you have also an NPS score. Those are very critical. The problem with those scores is the response rate is typically very low, right? So you're missing a huge chunk of customers that are never giving you any feedback because they don't have the time to do this. So what we later implemented in customer success and customer support was this sentiment score. So whenever customers talk to us or sent us an email, we would actually take the sentiment from that, and the AI was very good at doing this, to determine what is the customer feeling, how are they talking to us, and if you then combine that with who that particular stakeholder was, it was very valuable information. And then, of course, the sort of lagging indicators are, NRR. How well are you doing with your existing customer revenue? Are you growing that? NRR can hide a little bit of churn if you have a lot of upsell. So you have to also look at GRR. If all the products that the customer had at the time, at the beginning of the period versus the end of the period, and that would determine if you actually have churn there, right? And all this information you can use to dig into that, right, and see where do we have a problem, and why do we have a problem? Were these customers wrong fit customers and not ideal customers? Did the product have a problem, or was our service lagging, or perhaps did we do a bad job adopting them?
Right. Yeah. That's very interesting. That's very interesting indicators, and a huge value, when you start working on it, for sure. Yeah. And moving back into this topic of the sales teams and also the alignment, what we heard frequently in our conversations is sales compensation, or the way how it's actually structured, plays somehow an important role in this conversation.
Yes, I think the sales compensation plans have always played a very important role, even before subscription, because the compensation plan will direct the team, will direct their behavior, right? So I believe that in a subscription environment, you have to make sure that the sales reflect that. You want the sellers to only acquire customers who will be long-term customers, who you can retain, and you want the sellers to sell all the right additions, attachments to get them adopted and get them the value, right? And that's because if you just put an ARR target on a sales team, they will achieve this in any way. But does this actually give value to the company long term? Probably not. So you have to make really sure that the highly paid and capable sales team are really directing all their efforts in attaining the right customers, and to make sure that they're selling the right bits and pieces to make the customer successful.
And what do you think about this holy grail question for all customer success teams worldwide? Like, should the CS people be provisioned or compensated for upsells and cross sells, or will it spoil the relationship with the customer?
Well, 2 years ago, I would have said no. Customer success should only be responsible for creating and maintaining a great relationship with the customer and become a trusted advisor. Now, I would say there needs to be some sort of responsibility on customer success to grow the customer base, right, and to own a number. However, they shouldn't have quotas, for each person, because you have a trusted advisor, and this trusted advisor doesn't hit the number. What does it mean? The company gets rid of the trusted advisor. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast of TSIA the other day, and they were talking about the same subject, and they were talking about having a sort of group target for customer success, which is loose, right? If they don't hit it, there's nothing happens to the people, but you do assess and you do look at why did we not achieve this target. So I think customer success should own a number, but I don't think they should be fired if they don't hit the number.
Interesting. I think the group target is very, very good point. Yeah, I remember in my first early days here in Germany, when we just came after studies, I was working for a small Finnish company, which is still known by a few people, called Nokia, and we had like one of compensation parts of our overall compensation was coupled to the share price of Nokia on the stock exchange. I never understood the reason for that, but hey, when share price of company goes well, then every employee will also benefit, which is very, very high level target. But it sounds like a good idea, actually.
A very strange point.
Yeah, this is true. And but playing a bit of a devil's advocate here, if the sales is compensated on some number, do you think the customer success could be compensated on customer health score?
Well, if we look at sort of KPIs that customer success and customer facing teams have to reach, usually customer health score, customer satisfaction is one big element of that, right? Bonus plans are usually based on that, but ultimately you have to look at the lagging indicator, right? Are you actually growing the revenue? And I think this is why organizations now are become a little bit wary of the effectiveness of customer success, because there's not so much that you can base their effectiveness on, right? And the revenue ultimately is the best success indicator, I think, and that's why I think customer success needs to also own the growth number of the existing customers.
Yeah. Agree. It's absolutely important to have a common goal and bigger picture for all departments. Alignment will definitely benefit from it.
You can, once you have a lot of health scores, and you can then tie that to a lot of data in terms of revenue, and you can see there's a correlation there, right? So the health score is over 90%. There's a 90% probability that the customer will renew. Then perhaps you can definitely tie it to that. But until we have that, I would say that tie it to something tangible.
Yeah. Definitely, this leading indicator maybe not the best. Also, not the best way to compensate, right? So it's definitely tempting to do that, but it's also there are some challenges with that for sure. And we shortly touched this point about this ideal customer profile or ICP, like with customer personas and so on and so on. And this ICP is not usually who owns it actually, like in the companies so far. What do you think? Like, who is a primary definer of ICP?
Well, who should own it? It could be marketing, it could be customer success. In some companies, it could be the sales team as well, right? But again, it's a group effort, right? Because everyone will have data to determine who are our best customers. I think customer success is probably in the best position because they get the customers, they work with the customers for many years, and then they will know, when they slice and dice the data, they will know which segment of customers or which use case are the most successful ones, are the ones where we renew for 5 years or 10 years, right? And which ones aren't successful with our products. So again, this needs to be something where the teams come together and discuss this on a regular basis, to determine who are our ideal customers and what should the sales team actually target for acquisition. Do we want to acquire those customers from that segment where we know that they've been successful?
That's
for startups, it's more difficult, right? So startups don't have the luxury of the data at the back end, right? The experience. And they actually have to look at the market and they have to make a determination, we're going to target this customer because we think they will get the most value from our products. And then they just have to, it's a lot of trial and error there. But for existing ones, for existing companies with a large customer base, you have the data, right? And you know what is proven to be successful.
No, this is. I think we are coming to the data again, right? It's absolutely crucially important to have it, and also make very sure that it's very carefully stored and also carefully preserved, as you never know how the data can be potentially used in the future. Yeah, for sure. And
this is actually a very, very important point, Renat. Right. So sorry for interrupting you there, but the data hygiene is absolutely critical. So you need to make sure that whatever system you put this data in, that it is as clean as possible. It's never going to be super clean, right? But you want to make it as clean as possible, and you want to put the data from the different systems, from the sales system, from the success system, support system, into a data lake, which you can then have a data analyst actually pull really meaningful data out of. But data hygiene, I believe, is probably one of the biggest problems most organizations have. Right, the data isn't quite clean enough to make really accurate predictions.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as we also just to reflect on it a bit, we just had a conversation last week with one of the amazing person from in the area of like this revenue operations and also data operations, and he was constantly mentioning that any historical analysis you can only do so far as or so long as the sales management or chief revenue officer was in place. So like each new chief revenue officer is coming and restructuring the data completely, breaking all the reporting before. And that's definitely a huge challenge to really establish this long-term vision on the data, especially when there are so much changes in this area, right? And the change was subscription to perpetual. This is like also one of the biggest changes here for sure. Yeah. And also moving on to this more like organizational aspects, and what I really admire in your experience, and also what was very insightful in our discussion so far, is your like this experience in working in large organizations. If we are talking about like a bigger organizational structures, like with very well structured teams, and also let's say a bigger customer portfolio to manage, what would you recommend to organize? How do you recommend to organize this kind of customer success, and also like sales and customer success, as well as especially in the area of like a new thing, which is like a renewal teams? Like I just heard this term from you recently and was really excited to get to know more about that.
Yeah, so the renewal team. So at ABBYY, we had established a renewal team, and they were first under the chief customer officer, and then later on they moved under the chief revenue officer, who was more focused on sales, and then later they moved back into the post-sales teams when I was leading them, and I moved them under customer success, because I think the synergy between that you can create between customer success and the renewals team is huge. Yeah, because the renewals team also have a lot of contact with customers. They hear things from particular stakeholders that could be valuable to customer success, and obviously customer success hears things that could affect the renewal. Yeah, so I believe that putting these two teams together, having the renewals team report to the customer success leader, would give us that synergy, and we saw that it delivered that synergy. The renewal team would also help out, with sort of these low touch customers, or we call them digital touch customers. These are the low revenue customers where you cannot have a dedicated customer success manager, and they would take on this responsibility, right? At least once or twice a year, they would contact, they would ask questions that would go beyond the renewal questions, and just to determine, is the customer happy? Are there any problems, and so forth. So that worked really well. So the renewal team is really important, and of course they're very important because the renewal revenue becomes the largest revenue stream in an established subscription company. So they are the keepers of that, right? And they are responsible to make sure that there isn't, to keep the churn numbers down. So they are the ones that have to get everyone together if they see, okay, there's a renewal at risk, right? Get the customer success team on board, get the account managers from sales on board if they have a great relationship with the customer. And doing this, we were able to really de-escalate some situations and actually make that renewal happen again. And then lastly, one important thing is also, even if you lose a customer, there could be reasons for that. So you need to understand, why did we lose this customer? What was the reason for that? What's the churn reason? try to fix that particular problem if it is one, if it's identifiable, but also stay in touch with those customers, because you can always try to win them back later on. And we've had this several times. Some customers were frustrated with the product quality. They left to go to a competitor, and then a year later we just contacted them again, saying, hi, how you doing? And they were also unhappy at the competitor, and we talked through some of the problems they had with us, and they actually came back. So this whole win back thing, losing a customer doesn't mean you lost them forever. So the renewals team plays a very, very important role.
That's true. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's had this similar experience also before, where people are like leaving for good and then just looking for to get back after a while, because obviously experiencing the products after the sales speech is definitely one of the key elements and also key moments in time. Yeah, and I see we are now slightly running over the time, so I just have my most interesting, most precious question left, and this is also collaboration between customer success and sales. We just discussed, and there's so many facets and so many different ways how we can improve it. But what would you say about this customer success and partner management? So this is like, how was your experience so far, and what are the key insights from this area? Because what I understood also in your previous jobs, there was like a lot of partner management, and also a big chunk of business was coming from partners, right?
Yeah, this is a very, very interesting topic, actually. So the whole partner management, how do you manage? Because in the old world before subscription, you used partners to sell the product mainly, right, as resellers, and the partner would then also get a part of the maintenance, and they would help the customers as sort of first level support. In the subscription industry, it's different, right? Because the partner now has to do the things, those motions that customer success has to go through. They have to make sure the customer is successful by adopting them and stays successful and gets the value throughout this life cycle, right? So partner management now becomes a sort of responsibility also of customer success. And you need to have a strong relationship with your biggest partners. You have to talk through with them, how do they want to help the customers, how do they want to get them adopted, and share your data with them about how you do things, right? So just to make sure that they're successful with their customers, because at the end of the day, the organization still gets money from those customers, right? Because it's our product typically.
Right.
And again, on this TSIE podcast I listened to last time, there was this idea of having sort of customer success partner managers, and I really like that idea, because in some industries you can have a lot of your revenue coming from partners, sometimes half of the revenue coming from partners. So you need to stay in close touch with them to make sure that those customers are being looked after.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about it, but like, the partners themselves are more like a customer success, enhanced like customer success department, right? So the head of customer success need to coach and train them more or less, then, right?
Yes, I would say so. And each partner will do their job in a different way, right? So I think, in this podcast episode, they were actually talking about having a charter for your partners, right? A customer success charter for your partners. And I think that is the right way to go, right? Because you sort of standardize the level of services you deliver to them. Yeah. So I really like this whole idea of making sure your partners are more successful and aligning them with the tools and the structure that you have within your own organization.
Interesting. Yeah, that's definitely, yes, like more like a shared customer success workspace, maybe shared customer health score, shared data. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think this is like a huge topic. To be honest, like, when the more I hear you speaking about it, the more I understand. Like, we should definitely maybe do another 30 minutes talk only about this partner. We have also in our network some people who are very proficient with this partner management, really keen to hear their thoughts about it. But so far it was great. I mean, we're 34 minutes in so far. Steven, thank you very much for that. So I think we covered the main topics on the silo building. We just shortly discussed about the sales compensation, customer success compensation, ICP profiles, and how important is that. And the last few minutes was really great talk about partner management. I think people who would listen for this webinar, they could find you on LinkedIn, I guess, right?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Steven Cronin. Yeah.
Great. And also we will distribute after this podcast, after this webinar, all the information which we shared today. I think we prepared some interesting handouts. And also, if you're interested in getting more into Steven, you can find him on LinkedIn. And Revos, you can find revos.ai. So if there are any questions,
Yeah, Renat, thank you very much for those closing remarks. Yeah, it was a really good webinar, and if you have any questions, anyone, just feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. Very, very happy to talk about any of these subjects, really passionate about it. And there's a lot of things happening, just to give, just to share ideas about, how can we improve our relationship with our customers, because at the end of the day, it's all about providing value to them.
Yeah, absolutely agree. That's a very good closing word, Steven. Thank you very much, and hope to speak to you soon then.
Okay, thank you.